Hi there, this is Solitaire Ronin from Solitaire Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is of Kinetta from 2005, written and directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. As you may or may not know, Yorgos Lanthimos is probably my favourite modern director, and I think he's probably the best director working at the moment, or the best kind of relatively new director working at the moment. And I do think he has a chance to be an all-time great. So this is his first kind of full feature by himself. He did a comedy called Best Friends from 2001, which is on its way, and I'm hoping to watch that. But this is kind of his first Lanthimosian film, what we have come to be used to as Lanthimosian. He did Dogtooth after this, which kind of gave him more exposure, and then he did The Alps. Then he did The Lobster, which is probably my favourite Lanthimos film. And then he did The Killing of a Sacred Deer. And then he obviously became more well known with The Favourite, which is his most commercial film. There was Oscars involved, but still had that Lanthimos touch that those of us who really like him love about his work. So this is actually a Kino Lorber Blu-ray, but bizarrely it does have a white spine, unlike most Kino Lorbers that are the black spine. This has an audio commentary by film critic Amy Simmons, which is well worth checking out. It's a decent print, better than the DVD, but again it's pretty low grade stock, so it's not like a stunning Blu-ray release. It's lots of handheld camera, which at some point gets a little bit shaky. So the basic premise of this film, again, Lanthimos films you generally have to watch 2 or 3 times to kind of get more and more meaning from. Kinetta introduces us to 3 characters who, over the length of the film, we kind of learn are recreating local murders. As with all Lanthimos films, we exist in this strange universe. It's actually a perfect film for the lockdown, because it does feel as though it's set in a world of self-isolation. There's not a lot of people moving about the world. It kind of takes place in this kind of seaside town, which is obviously off season, or everybody's in lockdown, because there's not a lot of people kicking about. So we're introduced to the first character, who is standing next to a car crash, and there's music playing in the radio, and he goes into the car and switches the music off and takes the tape out, and then we see him going to a graveyard, and he's just standing over a grave. The next character we're introduced to is a maid who works in the hotel, and then we're introduced to a man who likes staring at cars, especially BMWs. Again, this is Lanthimos. If you're used to Lanthimos films, you know you're not going to get characters expounding what their motivations are. You're not going to get exposition. You literally have to figure out what's going on your own. He actually expects you to be able to figure out what's going on. If you are used to films telling you everything, then Lanthimos is not going to do that. Obviously, people might have liked The Favourite and then went back to his earlier work expecting to find something as accessible as that. Kinetta is not as accessible as The Favourite. But one of the things I love about Lanthimos is the fact he doesn't explain things. Characters don't speak in exposition. I mean, Kinetta is almost a silent film. There's not a lot of dialogue. And again, if you're used to Lanthimos films, even the dialogue doesn't necessarily explain what's going on. Again, it doesn't have the cinematography of The Lobster or Killing of a Sacred Deer or The Favourite. That kind of almost Kubrick-esque look to it. This one's a bit rough and ready. Again, it has some handheld camera. But as we kind of follow these characters, their body language and what they do tells us more about their character than sitting around giving us exposition. So when they recreate these crimes, the man who is into cars is always the attacker, the maid is always the victim, and the guy who we're introduced to at the start works in a photo shop. He's a photographer, so he records the attacks. So again, Lanthimos is showing us, we the viewer, and what are we actually watching and why are we watching it. It's another Lanthimos film about humans trying to communicate with each other, trying to emote with each other, but not being able to. It's also about power dynamics within relationships, which again is a through line in all of Lanthimos' work. So there is this kind of power dynamic, but again it's always the lead man who is attacking the maid. And then as the film progresses, you see the cumulative effect of the victim mentality of the maid, as she is playing the victims who are being attacked over and over again, and the cumulative psychological effect of that. There's also the subplot, not really plot, but the subline of the man who's in charge. He pretty much picks up women to audition them. So the photographer takes photos of them and then he brings them to his flat to audition them, which generally ends up with them being naked at some point. But again, this is done in a very oblique manner. Again, you just have to, because people can perhaps criticise Lanthimos for being too distant and being cold, but because you don't have the usual constructs of a film as far as plot and character, people don't tell you what they are and who they are. You have to figure it out through their actions. So you get involved in the story and the characters, not by the characters being relatable perhaps, or approachable, but you're hooked into their actions and you try and figure out exactly what's going on. So you are intrigued by the mystery of each of his films. And as you bring something of yourself to the film, rather than it being a passive experience and it's in one ear and out the other, Lanthimos films aren't about that. Lanthimos wants you to be a participant in the film. He wants you to bring thoughts and ideas to the film. As with all of his films that I've seen so far, again, it's funny in places, but it is that jet black comedy. It's only about 95 minutes long. The length is ideal. He knows what he wants. Again, if you've never seen a Lanthimos film before, you might get a little bit impatient because you're not being fed obvious information about what's going on. But again, that's just something that you need to get your brain round. It's not, Lanthimos films are not your spoon-fed mainstream films where everything's explained and you don't have to do any work. You have to work in Lanthimos films. As with all great art, you should actually be able to engage your brain. So I wouldn't say it's his best film, but it's certainly another interesting, thought-provoking film, again, about the power dynamics, about sexual politics, about the empty rituals, as again a lot of his films are about. Again, there's a trance-like quality to the film, which, like Dogtooth and the Alps, has that same kind of thing. You're just kind of, it's trance-like. Again, characters don't act or talk in the normal way that you expect in films, but that's what makes Lanthimos a really interesting artist and his films. No matter how many times you watch them, perhaps with the exception of the favourite, don't give up all their secrets, instantly, which is a good thing. So this was available. I did have it on second run DVD, but like I said, the Kino Lorber Blu-ray. So it just really needs Alps to get released in Blu-ray, then I'll have them all in Blu-ray, apart from his debut, which is coming in DVD. I should say this, again, apologies for any Greek viewers as I butcher the names, but this was the first time he used Thimios Bakatakis as his cinematographer, who shot all of his films, and also the editor Yorgos Mavroparsardis, who again, he's used the same editor from this film to all of his films. This one was actually co-written by Yorgos Kakanakis as well as Lanthimos. If you're a Lanthimos fan, I would obviously recommend it, and you've probably already got it and you've already watched it. If the only Lanthimos film you've watched is the favourite, Kinetta perhaps isn't the one to go to next. I would maybe go to The Lobster next. But yeah, check out Kinetta at some point, because it's a really interesting, challenging film, like all of his films are. So thanks very much for watching this random review of Kinetta, and hopefully leave me in comments below if you've watched Kinetta and what you think of it. and where you would rank it in Lanthimos's canon, which at the moment is rather impressive, and hopefully he builds on it. And hopefully we'll see you again for more random reviews. This is Solitude Ronin from Solitude Ronin Films saying farewell.